Oh, welcome those who are joining. We'll give it a few minutes as always to allow for people to roll in. How's voice? How's video? How's everything coming through? Oh, Julie? There is a strange background sound. I don't know. The only thing that I can hear is the laptop fans. Hello, Sean. Welcome. Sean, did you see Venerable Pasannas and I? We did a special Dhammapalooza down under a couple of weeks back, 3 weeks ago or so. Hello, Visaka, Dhamma learner, Steve. All right, we'll give it another minute or so, and then we'll get started. It was quite nice at Santi. I really enjoyed Santi. Not only the environment, which is amazing. Santi is the only monastery ever in my life that I had to use a rope to rappel down a rock to get to a spot where you can live in a cave. Like, this is amazing. Like, okay, I need to come back here and live in this cave for a little bit. One of these days, I have to get. It's like, that was so cool. Wouldn't be the first Bhikkhuni monastery I spent time at. Yeah, Santi was quite interesting, and also Aya Karunika is a pip. She's a real interesting character. She's about my age. She's Sri Lankan, but has a kind of very like Western flair about her, kind of like Bhante Kusala. And so we got along very, very well. And then there's another bhikkhuni there, Venerable Analia. So I had a lot of fun in Santi with the three of them. The 3 days I was there. And it was the only time during my Australia trip that I actually stayed in an actual regular old school kuti that didn't have electricity and all kinds of things like that. All right, so let's get started though before I talk too much about Australia. I can talk more about Australia if you want me to. Last week I'm still kind of tired today, to be honest with you, but I'm much better off than I was last week. When we ended the stream. Steve asks, "Are we off to Canada soon?" I don't know. That depends on the people bringing me to Canada. That's the thing about monastics. Monastics don't go anywhere unless they're invited. We can't show up unannounced, right? So when people invite me to go places, I say okay, and then it's up to them to talk to me about, well, how am I going to get there? What time? What are the dates I'm going to be there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's how it goes. So let's get started with our chanting, so we can officially get started with Dhammapalooza. It's 8:05, so that's perfect timing. Let's see. Abby, hello. I hope you're doing well health-wise. Your mother was telling me about some of the stuff you're going through. Hey, Isla and Ivy are the. Oh, Ivy's asleep. Hello, Isla. All right. Let's share and do our beginning chanting. Paragamino Gata. Appakate manusesu yejana paragamino attayang itara paja tirameva nudavati yechako sammadakate dhamme dhamma nuvattino tejana paramesanti machudeyang suduttarang kanhang dhammang vipaya sukhang bhaveta pandito Oka anoka ngagamma viveke yatta duramang tatra birati macheya hitva kameya kinchano pariyodapeya attanang chikta kalesi pandito yesang sambodhiyangesu sammachittang subhavitang adana patinisagge anupadaya yerata Kina sava juti manto te loke parinubuta. All right, English. Those who cross over. There are few among humans who go to the further shore. The rest of them run about here on this shore. But those well established in Dhamma, those who practice Dhamma, are among those who will cross over beyond the realm of death so difficult to escape. Abandoning the way of darkness, cultivating the bright, the wise go from home to homelessness, which for others is hard to enjoy. Desiring that rare delight, renouncing pleasure, owning nothing of defilements of the mind, the wise person should cleanse himself. Those whose minds are well established in the factors of enlightenment, relinquish attachments and delight not in clinging. They, untainted and radiant in this very world, attain Nibbana. Sadhu. All right, friends, welcome to Dhammapalooza, the second one since our break, where I didn't have a Dhammapalooza for about 5 weeks being in Australia. But now we are back in full swing, at least for now. At least for the next month. I'll be in a stable place. We'll see what happens after that. But anyway, this is Dhammapalooza. It is the Maggasekha community's 2-hour festival of Dhamma every Monday night from 8 p.m. New York time to 10 p.m. This is where we do a variety of Dhamma-related activities. We did some chanting, and later we're probably going to do some meditation. In between, who knows? Could have some sutta reading, could do questions, could have a Dhamma talk, lots of different possibilities, because each Dhammapalooza is totally different. This is why, because it is community-led, meaning that you guys have input on how this evening is going to go. For better or worse. Usually it's for the better. So for the next couple of minutes in the chat, if you have any questions for me, if you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, right, feel free to put that in the chat. And then if nothing comes up, we'll play Anguttara Nikaya Roulette. Now, this is something that I mentioned it briefly last Dhammapalooza, but this is something that I was doing. I did maybe like 3 or 4 Dhammapaloozas before I went to Australia. And it's a pretty neat little game. And so how the roulette works is that we read totally random suttas. So I'll ask for a number. So it's like we'll do the Samyutta Nikaya. There's 57 Samyuttas. So I'll say number between 1 and 57. And then whoever types in the first number, that's the number where that's the Samyutta. And then I'll say number between 1 and 80. And whatever first number comes up, that's the number. And then we just go to that sutta and we read the sutta. So it's just like roulette in terms of it's just you never know what's going to come up. It's just going to be just a total random, interesting bunch of suttas. So we'll see. I'd like to do that. It's fun. I did it a bunch of times towards the end, right? And there's only like maybe 4 or 5 people on, so it's not, and even then it was pretty fun and energetic. So it probably would be even better when there's lots of people. But hello, Metika. Are you at Birkin right now? You're able to be on the internet? Or yeah. Maybe I should get Ajahn Sona to come on Dhammapalooza. I've never actually met him. I've never spoken one word with Ajahn Sona. So it would be kind of a little bit wacky for me to, hey, he's a very senior Ajahn who was ordained initially by the same person as me. Would you want to come on my show? No, that's not going to work. Let's see. Okay, so Abby is saying it's been a rough go. No hospital trip this week, thankfully. Very good. Oh, hello, Jake. Good to see you. Hello, Ian. Okay, Metika, no problem. So Abby says, what were the highlights from your trip? Qantas is a really good airline. Flying inside of Australia on Qantas reminded me of flying in America in the old days. It was quite a nice thing. Steve says, I caught you a few times in Oz. The Buddhist community seems very active there. How did you find it? You caught me a few times? What do you mean? Like you saw when I was posting on like Facebook or something? Or well, every one of the places that I visited, except for one, has a direct connection to Ajahn Brahm. Well, of the Thai forest places. I before I flew out to the west coast to go to Perth, to go to Bodhinyana, Ajahn Brahm's monastery, I spent a couple of days in Canberra, which is the capital, and I spent a couple of days at Sri Lankan Buddhist Vihara. And the abbot there was very, very nice gentleman, very nice Sri Lankan monk, senior monk. I mean, he's probably my age. He's, but like in terms of years, senior. Um, and he was very sick there. It wasn't COVID or anything. It was something that was ongoing for weeks. And he had a mask on. He had very low energy. He just looked sick. And and the first the first night I get there, and I wake up in the morning and he says, Bante, you go to 2 house donnas today? I'm like, house donnas? What do you mean house donnas? And I said, okay, sure, Bante. If you want me to do house donnas, no problem. He's like, I want you to. There'll be lots of young Sri Lankans there, and they really like the Western monks, which I know. I mean, I know this from America. It's the same thing. And so I did 2 house donnas in one day, which I had never done ever in my life. A breakfast and a lunch. And Bhavana doesn't do house donnas. We did maybe 1 house donna a year for one specific special person to Bhante Ji, and that was it. So that was interesting. And then after that, flew out to Bodhinyana. I don't know, what were some of the highlights? The kangaroos and were interesting. I enjoyed kind of doing like a what do they call it, David Attenborough or Steve Irwin of like the observing the kangaroos and just like watching them do things. I saw them Some of them punching, like doing the kangaroo boxing. They do kind of funny like things with their hands sometimes. Um, Working with Ajahn Brahmali, like working, like 3 days worth of work periods. I worked with Ajahn Brahmali. That was interesting. I enjoyed that because this is somebody who I only know from online, from his talks, um, from his video work, which is I told him I greatly appreciated. He was very happy that like I assume people usually like praise him, thank him for his work, but he took he's like, oh, really, thank you. It's like, oh, okay. you know but and he actually knew me too. He knew me from the Discord, the discourse, discover, discover, and what do they call it, discuss and discover. And I was like, I'm thinking to myself, I haven't posted on there in years. But I guess he remembered me. And we worked together. We did some fire abatement stuff, like clearing, cutting bushes and clearing and things. We worked with a couple lay people, and that was really nice to work with him. We got to talk a little Dana, and just to kind of talk about various things like bhavana, or different monastic related things and world related things. um, and then in the evenings I got to spend a little bit of time with him. The evening session that they have, that's an optional kind of tea time. And there's usually at least one Ajahn there. The first night Ajahn Brahm was there, actually, and the Ajahn Brahmali also came. um, and then after that, Ajahn Brahm left. He went to England. So I only saw Ajahn Brahm for one day, but it was a packed day. Ajahn Brahm showed me the skeletons in the closet. I was like, I mean, he knows me. So we've spent days before in the past. but he was like, we were going to eat, and he's like, Jayasara. He goes, there's a secret here at Bodhinyana. And there's this closet like right under the stairs as you go up to where the monks eat. And he opens the door and he goes, here's our skeletons in the closet. There's two like Halloween skeletons hanging in the closet. I was like, yeah, that's so Ajahn Brahm. that's that like, of course that I would expect that. Um, One thing that I was quite impressed with about Bodhinyana is that people might, because of Ajahn Brahm having a sort of perception of being a little bit, be, be, some of it is related to the bhikkhuni ordination. Some of it's just because of how he is. Some people might have this perception that they're not really good Vinaya monks, but this is actually totally false. They're actually quite strict, even with like the women stuff. Like, it's like, they even go above beyond the Vinayas. It's like if you're speaking with a woman on the phone for more than 10 minutes, you have to have somebody with you there, unless it's like a sister or a mother or something like that. I was like, whoa, really interesting. It's like, I was surprised at the Vinaya that they all kept there. It's a very light, they're a motley bunch, a motley crew. And by motley means like a very diverse. So it's like, they're diverse in terms of what countries they're from. They're diverse in terms of their politics and their kind of views on life. I saw a few back and forths about various things happening in the world. Most of the younger monks didn't talk too much about, but a few of the older monks were chatted a little bit. But and some of them various degrees of levels of understanding English, and it was just like this really interesting group of monastics, most of who I didn't really get to know because it's a very hermit kind of a place. Like, they don't really do things together. There's no pujas, right? Every monastery I went to, even the one not affiliated with Ajahn Brahm, no pujas, no regular daily events. Like once a week or so, there's a Dhamma talk. Like, there's a few weekly things, but mostly the only thing that you see each other in is when in the meal. That's it. So, so it was kind of like I tried to meet monks and talk to them as much as I could. Uh, but I didn't really get to know most of them. I got to do patimokkha with the crew. Ajahn Brahm, the whole crew. Ajahn Brahmali did the chanting. He knows the whole Vinaya. He should, right? He did the translation that I praised him for because it's such a welcome thing. But Bodhinyana was quite good. And then I spent some time in so yeah, so don't think that if anybody ever says or says something like, oh, the Bodhinyana monks, they're not good Vinaya monks. No, they are. They're good Vinaya monks, and they're good practitioners too. It's not like some kind of wild, like, do whatever Ajahn Brahm kind of a place. That's not how that place is. For sure, it's definitely not. Um, even even Ajahn, if Ajahn Brahm was like that, Ajahn Brahmali is like a kind of a bit of a strict taskmaster. He's more my kind of guy. Ajahn Brahmali has like more my kind of personality. Um, and then I spent some time at a place called Newbury. This is a monastery that is affiliated with Ajahn Brahm, and all the monks there were Ajahns. So I was the most junior monk there. I was the only monk there who wasn't an Ajahn. There was four of them, and then me while I was there. And very cold. I saw snow there very briefly, but like they actually like there's this wonderful, amazing old monk, Venerable Nisarno. I think he has about close to 30 Vasa, and he's also like 70 something. And he was so kind. He's like, Jai, sorry. He's like, come here. He's like, you need a jacket and you need this. And he's asking how I'm doing and everything. And that was a cool, that was a pretty chill place. Didn't really, the Ajahns kind of did their thing and I did my thing. I talked to them a little bit. Um, there's also bhikkhunis there. They kind of have this thing where like the bhikkhus have their section, the bhikkhunis have their section, and there's this kind of like main almost reminds me kind of like a winter cabin kind of a thing. They even had a fire going. It was cold. It was like winter in New Jersey. It was like like I don't know what it would be Celsius, um, 20s or teens maybe. Or like so basically for me it was like like low 40s. Kind of like how it is now. When I went for my walk today, it was like 41, 42. and what you call it? Yeah, and the kangaroos there were interesting because there were like huge packs of gray kangaroos, like 20 of them. And they would just kind of be lounging. And then they would kind of get up and they'd look at me as I was walking past and things like that. So that was good. And then I stayed at this place called Dhammagiri with these two. One monk was a German monk, and this German monk, Ajahn Dhammasiha, interesting. He ordained and lived in Sri Lanka for like 5 years, and then he lived with Ajahn Brahm for like 5 or 6 years, and then he went to Thailand for a couple years. He's an interesting character, and I stayed with them, and then I stayed the last couple of days at Santi. I got to spend a night with the Bhante Sujato, and I did a Pindapat with him. And I got to spend a couple hours with him at the end of my trip to talk to him. And we had a lot of good conversation. We had a walk in the night. Had some interesting interactions with some of the street people hanging out in the street. Not like people partying. I mean, like people literally living in the street. Some like mentally ill, drug use, all that kind of stuff. The two of us had some fun that night. That was a good one. But yeah, that's about it. And I also stayed at this really cool place called the Buddhist Library, which is literally a Buddhist library, but also has teachers and things like that and sessions, stuff like that. They have a place for like a monk or a visiting teacher to stay, like a little flat. So that was basically Australia, pretty much. I talked about Santi at the beginning. Uh, all right, yeah. Everybody loves Ajahn Brahm. Ajahn Brahm is fairly ready to retire, I think. he's he's way overworked. Way overworked. and they're trying to work on ways so that he can have less burdens. Now, that's the thing. Like this is what I look at. Like I look at myself, and I think like if I do end up starting a place, I got to have an exit plan. I gotta make sure I have enough good monks that can take over for me. So by the time I'm like, like 70 or so, I'll be like, I'll still teach. I'll still be like the spiritual director, but I'm retiring from this abbot thing. You guys can handle it now. Yeah. Jake has a good question. Oh, Julie also had a question. I see. I'll answer your question after this, Julie. Did you find the lay communities in Australia any different than those in the U.S.? No, no, not really. It's a mix. It's a mix of Sri Lankan people, Thai people. I think I met a couple Burmese people, so Indonesians, Malaysians, Singaporeans, Westerners. This is just like a mix of people. Um, it's pretty much the same. Australia, honestly, Australia struck me as very, very similar to America in almost all respects. I mean, there's a little bit of cultural differences, but even they're not that different. It's because of I think it's because of the we both have the same origin, which is England, right? I think that because we both have that kind of like original parent, that we're quite similar in many, many ways. Like driving around Australia, the stores, everything. It's like if I was an American and I went to live in Australia, I'd be adapted in about a month. No problem. I know how to get anything I need, go where. I mean, the only difference is the driving on the other side of the road. That's a tough one. That would need to adapt. But Australia is just so much like, I was just like struck by how like America it is. I'm sure not a lot of us, maybe not a bunch of Australians would want me would like to hear that, to be honest with you. But in terms of just like the society, it's very similar. Oh, I would come to England, no problem. I would definitely go to England. We can go. I can go on a Dhamma/castle tour. Go see some of the old castles. All right. Um, let's see. In Theravada Buddhism, Julie says, does a monk have control over where they live, or can they be sent to any monastery at any time? What are the determining factors? Yes. The Buddha is amazingly wise, right? And this is why, like when you read the Vinaya, you see how different it was set up compared to the kind of like authoritarianism that you kind of see in a lot of the Buddhist countries in relation to like these kind of things. So when somebody is ordained for 5 years, they have to live independence on a senior monastic, but they get to choose who that monastic is. You can actually vet the person that you're supposed to live under. You actually can stay, like, kind of give them a little bit of a test, a little bit of a time. Let's see, should I be under this person? I'm willing to bet 80% of Buddhist monks in the world don't know that, because most Buddhist monks don't actually read the Vinaya. They just go by tradition, or what their teacher says. But this is what the Buddha laid down, that you can choose who you want to be your teacher, who you want to be the person that instructs you and that you live under. It's a very, very wise thing, right? So that you're kind of not stuck. If you're stuck under somebody you really don't want to be under, you can go off on your own and try to find somebody else. There are even reasons that allow you to be on your own, but really you should be trying to find. It's really because you're trying to find somebody else. You should be under dependence of somebody for the first 5 years. Who it is, up to you. Now, of course, traditionally, and there's other factors you have to think about. If you get ordained in a place, right? You live there for 2 years. They put you through the process. You kind of it would be kind of a little disrespectful to just be like, okay, peace out, I'm gone. I mean, you can do it, but it's kind of like little ungrateful. I mean, it's kind of like, we put you through this process. We ordained you. We did all of this, and now you leave. See you later. So that's a bit of it can be done. And if it's not a good situation for you, it should be done. But there are other factors you have to consider. Metika says Ajahn Brahm was recently in the UK running a retreat with Venerable Ayachanda. Yeah, that's where he left. He left for Australia. He left for England. He had a 1 a.m. flight in Australia. We got done with Patimokkha and things like, I think close to like 10 o'clock. He was there with us. And then he left, I think, for the airport like maybe around 11 or 10:30 or something for his 1 a.m. flight to England. Listen, I'll go anywhere anybody wants me to go. If it can be scheduled and planned in a way that it's not interrupting anything else or, whatever. Like, for instance, Ayatataloga wanted me to go to India in November to be a part of the ordinations. But I said, I'm sorry, I'm already going to Australia. I mean, I would have went to India to be part of Bhikkhuni ordinations like that in a heartbeat. No problem. That would have been great to go to Bodh Gaya and things like that and be one of the monks who's part of the monks who are ordaining bhikkhunis. I'd do it in a heartbeat. But it just turned out that this time, I had already had plans. But no, I'm willing to go. If people want to invite me places, I'm going there. No problem. I mean, now is the best time to do it because, I mean, even if I do end up having a little place in Colorado and things like that, I can still travel. But once I really get locked in, it's going to be a bit harder for me to do a lot of traveling, and especially to go away for like weeks at a time, to go away for a month. If I have a little Maggasekha Vihara that, a little rented place and things like that, going away for a month is probably going to be a bit much. Unless I have somebody watch the place for me or something like that. But now is the time, the next couple of years when I'm not really latched in. Now's the time for me to travel and to be gone even for weeks. When it comes to traveling, the hardest thing is the airline. Like, that's usually the biggest thing. Other than, like, for traveling, when I go places, I can stay in people's houses. As long as I have my own room and a door that I can lock, I could stay in people's houses. That's what I did traveling in America. I can stay in all kinds of different places. It's actually pretty easy. I mean, I have one meal a day. I'm pretty easy to maintain. I'm probably even easier to maintain than a dog or a cat, to be honest with you. It's the airfare that's usually the most expensive. And if there's a group of people behind it that can do it, that can share the burden, then it makes it a bit easier. Steve says, can you explain how the title Ajahn arises? Ajahn is the Thai derivative word for acharya, which means teacher. So when you become a monastic, you have a preceptor, and so the Pali word for it escapes me because it's really a word that almost never comes up. So you have the preceptor who is really ordaining you, and you have the acharya who is the one like So if you've watched an ordination where you have like the main senior monk that's like on the, and then you have like two other senior monks who are kind of there and they're chanting something, they're asking questions, things like that. One of those would be the acharya, or even two of them could be acharya, right? So this is the word acharya, which means teacher or instructor, and ajahn comes from that. This is why in Thailand, just regular school teachers can be ajahn. Right? Ajahn just simply means teacher. And it's used not only in monastic life, but also just in regular lay life in Thailand. All right. Well, we've come to the end of the chat. Chat's a bit quiet. Welcome, people who have joined. We have a good amount of people on. If the chat's quiet, maybe we can do some roulette. Why don't we do that? Oh, wait. Hey, Jay. Oh, now all of a sudden we have questions. That's how it always goes. As soon as I talk about suttas, people think up of questions. Oh, you have grays, huh? I got a gray alien looking at me. Hey, Bante. One of these days, I got to tell you about the grays. Hey, Bante. I don't hear much about Buddhism coming out of India because there's barely any Buddhism in India. There's probably more Buddhism in America than there is in India, to be honest with you. At least that's my perception. I'm not Indian. I've never been to India, but this is what I'm kind of told, and this is what I understand. There's really not much Buddhism. There's Buddhism that's related to Ambikar, right? Ambikar is this very famous Indian gentleman who kind of used Buddhism to help the Dalits, like the untouchables, to like in trying to convert them to Buddhism, to get them out of the caste system, that kind of stuff. Very, very well respected and loved person in India, at least among the Dalits. Probably not so much among the Brahmins. Even today, in 2,600 years later, the Brahmins are not too happy about Buddhism, at least in some aspects. But that's what I know. That's all I know about India. I remember, like, I was at a Sri Lankan vihara, and I was at a Sri Lankan vihara. This was in DC, so I think I was in Anagarika at the time, so I was wearing white. I was living at Bhavana, and I was at a Vesak, right, big Sri Lankan thing going on, and I'm just sitting there, and a Sri Lankan gentleman, I guess he was Sri Lankan, could have been Indian, but he comes up to me, he goes, "Hey, hello, have you heard of Ambikar?" And I'm like, "Who?" And he gives me this pamphlet, and I'm like, is this some kind of cult or something? I don't know what's going on with this. I've never heard of this. And now, of course, later I realized, no, this is actually like a pretty good thing. It's not like a cult or some wacky thing. It is, there's a whole international organization and all this kind of stuff. But other than that, I don't know much that there is much Buddhism in India. Very small percentage, like a 1%, 2%, like America, somewhere's around there. Gregory says, do you find that the disputes about the acceptability of full Theravada Bhikkhuni ordinations are settled in Australia and the US, or did you find any communities disagree still? Oh, there's lots of disagreement. If you're talking about in the Western culture, well, don't forget, like there's lots and lots and lots of Thai and Sri Lankan and other places in Australia, in America, and those places follow the tradition from their country. The Bhikkhuni thing is an interesting thing. It really is. Something that I observed. I listened to both the sides, both the arguments, and really kind of delved into it video wise for even before I was a monk, just to kind of really see if this was just, well, we're going to do it anyway, or if there was actual like Vinaya, legitimate Vinaya allowance for it. And I'm pretty convinced that there's legitimate Vinaya allowance for it. Um, Others are not. And of course, there's others. It's just not part of the tradition. Like as far as we know, there's literally never been bhikkhunis in Thailand. And the bhikkhuni order died before Buddhism came to Thailand. At least that's what I understand. So it's never been part of that culture. And so, it's kind of like, well, why start now, I guess, for many of them. Um, but, among Westerners, it's usually not much of a big issue. But among Westerners, you also have people who are kind of just willing to throw away a lot of the old traditional stuff, which I'm not a big fan of either. Um, if it's not part of your culture, you have no attachment to it. So you just can throw it away. It's easy. These old blah 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 blah. You know, uh, they got to get with the new century, or these kind of things. Eh. We throw away ancient wisdom and ancient tradition at our peril. Things need to change, but should be done very wisely. And I think that the bhikkhus and then the bhikkhunis who have been part of, like Ayatollah, and many others, who have been part of reviving the bhikkhuni order, have been very wise in how they did it. They've dotted their I's, crossed their T's, made their arguments. Right? It's not we're just doing it anyways, and who cares about you, traditional cultural people. Right? So they've done I think the people who have done it have done it the right way, the wise way. And so eventually, I think that you know, even in the Buddhist countries, that over time the perspective will change and bhikkhunis will become more accepted. Oh, hello, Luke. Welcome. We met at Newbury. Remind me who you were. Was it just that you saw me during Adana? Yeah, it was. I enjoyed my time, but it was kind of very. It was just exhausting. It was just like, it wasn't like go in one place and stay there for a month. It was, you know, take a flight, stay for a couple of days, take a flight, stay for a couple of days, take a flight, stay for a couple of days. So after a while, like I was like, okay, this is a this is a bit much. I'm no regrets. I'm happy I did it. I loved it. No, but I don't know that I'd do it again that way. If I go back, and there are people who already want me to come back. There's possible groups who would invite me and set it up and everything. Because like I said, especially the one Sri Lankan abbot at the Canberra place. Once he's like I'm not even there a day. He's like, you come back 3 months, come and stay 3 months. I'm like, okay. I was like, probably not a bad idea. I don't know how I'd survive 3 months with the Sri Lankan food, but other than that, it doesn't seem like a bad idea. Roy says 14. I don't know what that means. Oh, Luke, you came for oh, okay, okay, yes, yes, yes. I remember you. Okay, Luke, I remember. Yes, yes, I remember. Yeah, now I remember. Yeah. Julie says, please tell us about the Grays. Maybe another time. It's not Dhamma related. Well, it's about fear, so you can make it Dhamma related, but yeah. Oh, hello, Robert. Good to see you. How much of the path is literally just changing one's own perceptions regarding what brings happiness? One example would be using a suba to combat lust. Perception is a huge part of the path. One of the things you realize is that as you really start to become wise and mindful, is that you can't trust your perception. Your perception is faulty. It's not always wrong, but you should always question it. Always question it. You should never let a perception go by without questioning it. Is this true? Am I seeing things correctly or am I not? Am I really perceiving this accurately or am I not? We have our greed, hatred, and delusion that messes with our perceptions. We even have evolution. We even have the human brain, the human system that doesn't care about your happiness or anything like, or even truth. It cares about survival. So your perceptions are tainted in that way towards survival, right? So, yeah, changing and understanding your perceptions regarding what brings happiness. Yeah, we perceive. What does it say in the Dhammapada? What the wise see as happiness, others see as suffering. What others see as suffering, the wise see as happiness. That's a matter of perception. It's a matter of not seeing correctly. Oh, Roy is ready to do a sutta. Gotcha. All right. Well, we are at the end of the chat, so let's do it. Why don't we do it? Let me load up. Let me share screen. Hello, Metika. Have a good night. Thanks for jumping in. Okay. So, how this is going to work is that I will count down 3, 2, 1, and then go, and then you type in. Right? If you type in a number before I do 3, 2, 1, and then go, I'm not counting it. So now we're going to do Samyutta. There's 57 Samyuttas. Some of you who might know your suttas might rig the system if you want. If you know which Samyuttas are which, you might rig what you want. But that's okay. Not everybody will know. So a number between 1 and 57 in 3, 2, 1, go. The chat needs to update or everybody ran away. We'll see. Oh, here we go. 26. Jake has it. 26. So this is another reason for chat roulette, right? This can help you because I'm sharing the screen. If you're kind of confused at how to navigate the suttas, chat roulette, isn't that some stupid app or something? Sutta roulette can help you to be able to navigate. So 26. Linked discourses, you see here, Samyutta Nikaya, SN. And so sometimes they're not going to have the number, so you just have to kind of guess. So I'm going to guess 26 is probably here. I was wrong. You see here, it says the Bhikkhu Samyutta, SN21. So got to go back. Did I? No, that was the same one. Okay. So we go to the next one, the Kanda Samyutta. It was 26, right? Yeah, 26. All right. So now we're going to do the linked discourses on upada, arising. So now what I'm going to do is do a break. And now a number between 1 and 80 in 3, 2, 1, go. Who will be first? Just waiting for the chat to come in. Oh, okay. 41. All right, let's go to 41 then. 26. Oh, okay. Now we have a lesson. Not all the Samyuttas have a bunch of suttas. Guess what? There's no 41. So let's see. Is there a 39? No, there's only a 1 to 10. Now, what this is going to be is very short. We might just read all of them. Oh, no. Okay, never mind. Let's read this one. 6 kinds of consciousness, because they're all short, and they're all at the end of the Samyutta Nikaya, and at the of some Samyuttas, and at the end of Anguttara Nikaya, what you'll see is a long series of very short suttas that all have the same theme, and the only thing that's different is one thing, right? And so this is what you kind of will see here. So at Savatthi, mendicants, the arising of I consciousness, mind consciousness, is the manifestation of old age and death. The cessation of I consciousness, mind consciousness, is the ending of old age and death. That's kind of confusing, isn't it? It's because it's ellipsed. Mind consciousness, ... And the reason being is because this is also related to a sutta before it. So you go back, and this is mendicants, the arising, continuation, rebirth, and manifestation of sights is the arising of suffering, the continuation of disease, and the manifestation of old age and death. The arising, continuation, rebirth, and manifestation of sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and thoughts is the arising of suffering, the continuation of diseases, and the manifestation of old age and death. The cessation of settling and ending of sights. Right? So you kind of get a little gist. At Savatthi, mendicants, the arising, continuation, rebirth, and manifestation of the I is the arising of suffering, the continuation of disease, and the manifestation of old age and death. If you have an I, that means you were born, you have a body, you have salayatana, the senses. So this is why the arising of the I is the continuation of diseases and manifestation of old age and death. All right. So let's go back. Let's go back and let's do another samyutta. A number between 1 and 57 in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, we have a 16. One of the great things also about this is that so far that I've seen, it's not like the same person that's always first. It always seems to be a different person that gets in first, which is good, because if it was the same person that was always first because of their internet or whatever, then it would be a little it would be a little tougher to do it like a roulette. All right, so Samyutta Nikaya number 16. The linked discourses with Kassapa. What are we at here? All right, so a number between 1 and 13. In 3, 2, 1, go. We're picking the ones with the short suttas today. But that's how it goes when it's totally random. 5. All right, we got 5. Like I said, this is going to be similar to the other one in that they're all pretty connected. Old age. Let's see. So I have heard, near Rajagaha, in the bamboo grove, then Venerable Mahakassapa, my guy. Venerable Mahakassapa is the disciple who I connect the most with. I like him. The grumpy old man of the Sangha. Actually, traditionally, he's called the father of the Sangha. But I call him the grumpy old man of the Sangha. Because he's always complaining about these youngins, these monks today. Back in the old days, we used to be living in the woods and, being tough and less. And now these monks today. And that was 2,600 years ago, let alone now. So anyway, then Venerable Mahakassapa went up to the Buddha, bowed, and sat down to one side. The Buddha said to him, "You're old now, Kassapa. Those worn-out hemp rag robes must be a burden." Oh, this is one of my favorite ones of his, too. I love this one. "You're old now, Kassapa. Those worn-out hempen robes must be a burden for you. So, Kassapa, you should wear robes given by householders, accept invitations for the meal, and stay in my presence." All right, so the Buddha's like, stay with me, chill, just take it a little bit easier. All right, keep in mind he's awakened, right? So Mahakassapa is awakened at this point, and this is towards the end, right? He Mahakassapa does obviously survive the Buddha, but this is probably towards the end of the Buddha's life. And so Mahakassapa says, "For a long time, sir, I've lived in the wilderness, eaten only alms food, worn rag robes, and owned only just 3 robes. And I've praised these things. I've been one of few wishes, content, secluded, aloof, and energetic. And I've praised these things." And so the Buddha says, "But seeing what benefit, Kassapa, have you long practiced these things?" "Sir, seeing 2 benefits, I've long practiced these things. I see a happy life for myself in the present, and I have compassion for future generations, thinking, hopefully those who come after might follow my example." I'm trying, Mahakassapa. I'm trying. "For they may think, it seems that the awakened disciples of the Buddha for a long time lived in the wilderness, ate only alms food, wore rag robes, and owned just 3 robes. And they praised these things. They were of few wishes, content, secluded, aloof, and energetic. And they praised these things. They'll practice accordingly, with which will be for their lasting welfare and happiness. Seeing these 2 benefits, I have long practiced these things." So you see this also, the Buddha says this as well. Why he does certain things. It is to set an example, to be a role model for future generations of monastics and practitioners. Right? So Mahakassapa's job is done. He's awakened. He doesn't need to do anything. But he's doing it because it's habit and it's just something that he enjoys doing. He doesn't mind doing it. It's some of the oldest nature poetry surviving in the world is Mahakassapa, especially in the Therigatha, where he talks about the joy of being in the wilderness. So this is a person who loves being in the wilderness. Good, Kassapa. You're acting for the welfare and happiness of the world, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, welfare, and happiness of gods and humans. So Kassapa, wear worn-out hempen rag robes, walk for alms, and stay in the wilderness. That's one of my favorite Mahakassapa suttas. Okay, Roy, since you said it so well, I'm gonna continue to 6. That was that. Okay, so let me go. Oh, where? Uh-oh, which one was it? Um, 16:5. Right. All right. 16:5. Okay, here we go. Don't make me read the whole Kasapa Samyutta. Okay. Advice. Near Rajagaha, in the bamboo grove, then the venerable Maha Kassapa went up to the Buddha, bowed, and sat down to one side. The Buddha said to him, Kassapa, advise the mendicants, give them a Dhamma talk. Either you or I should advise the mendicants and give them a Dhamma talk. Sir, the mendicants these days are hard to admonish, having qualities that make them hard to admonish. They're impatient and don't take instruction respectfully. Take the monk called Banda. Yeah, Banda. Ananda's pupil. He's been competing in studies with the monk called Abhinjika, Anuruddha's pupil. Come on, monk. Who can recite more? Who can recite better? Who can recite longer? So the Buddha addressed a certain monk. Please, monk, in my name, tell the monk Banda, Ananda's pupil, and the monk called Abhinjika, Anuruddha's pupil, that the teacher summons them. So this line here, you see this in the Vinaya. Like every rule, right? Every rule is some monk does something stupid. The people complain. The Buddha hears about it. And then the Buddha has to say, call them in my name. Tell them to come to me. And so you have this very kind of like Vinaya structure here. Yes, sir, the monk replied. He went to those monks and said, Venerables, the teacher summons you. Yes, Reverend. Those monks replied. They went to the Buddha, bowed, and sat down to one side. The Buddha said to them, Is it really true, monks, that you've been competing in studies, saying, Come on, monk, who can recite more? Who can recite better? Who can recite longer? Yes, sir. Have you ever known me to teach the Dhamma like this? Please, mendicants, compete in studies to see who can recite more and better and longer. No, sir. If you've never known me to teach the Dhamma like this, then what exactly do you know and see, you foolish men, that after going forth in such a well explained teaching and training, you'd compete in studies to see who can recite more and better and longer? Then those monks bowed with their heads. By the way, this is not an actual rule. Like, this is not in the Vinaya, as far as I know. Um, but obviously in the sutta, we can see that this is not something encouraged by the Buddha. Then those monks bowed with their heads at the Buddha's feet and said, We have made a mistake, sir. It was foolish, stupid, and unskillful for us in that after going forth in such a well explained teaching and training, we competed in studies to see who can recite more and better and longer. Please, sir, accept our mistake for what it is. So we will remain ourselves, or we will restrain ourselves in the future. Indeed, monks, you have made a mistake. It was foolish, stupid, and unskillful of you to act in such a way. Now, this is the stock phrasing of how you make amends and how you learn in the Dhamma, right? But since you recognize your mistake for what it is and have dealt with it properly, I accept it. For it is growth in the training of the noble ones to recognize a mistake for what it is, deal with it properly, and commit to restraint in the future. Roy, thanks for asking to do that one again. That was very good. I'm glad to have read that. All right, friends, let's do another one. Maybe another one or two, and then we'll do our guided meditation. Okay, so a number between 1 and 57. In 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so we have 34. Group of linked discourses. $34 is probably going to be Salat. Oh, off by 1. All right, so not Salayatana, the group of the aggregates. All right, so linked discourses on jhana. So looks like we have a between 1 and 55. So number between 1 and 55 in 3, 2, 1, go. We shall see who can compete in typing in the number the fastest. All right, we have a 7. Jay got first both. Jay got Ooh, Jay's been getting first a lot. I wonder if Jay has really good internet. Um or he's quickest on the draw. I don't know. Number 7, projecting the mind purified by immersion. Let's read it. And again, we're these are only 10 or 11 suttas, so they're all pretty much small and connected. At Savatthi, Mendigas, there are these 4 meditators. What for? One meditator is skilled in immersion, but not in projecting the mind purified by immersion. The rest you have to guess for yourself. Let's see if we can go back and find the first one where it actually shows you the whole thing. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah. Remaining in immersion. At Savatthi, mendicants, there are these 4 meditators. One meditator is skilled in jhana, or samadhi, skilled in immersion, but not in remaining in it. One meditator is skilled in remaining in it, immersion, but not skilled in immersion. One meditator is skilled neither in immersion nor in remaining in it, and one meditator is skilled in both immersion and remaining in it. Of these, the meditator skilled in immersion and in remaining in it is the foremost, the best, the leading, the highest, and the finest of the 4. From a cow comes milk. From milk comes curds. From curds come butter. And by the way, if you ever kind of wonder why, like in Thai forest, monks can have cheese in the evening, but not in places like Sri Lanka, it's because of the curds, right? It's because of the argument of um, the curds that make cheese basically being connected to butter, which is or ghee, which is inallowable. So it's an interesting debate as to cheese's allowability. From butter comes ghee, and from ghee comes cream of ghee. And the cream of ghee is said to be the best of those. I bet you cream of ghee really is pretty good. Buddha talks about cream of ghee a couple times in the suttas, at least. In the same way, the meditator skilled in immersion and remaining in it is the foremost, best, leading, highest, and finest of the 4. Let's see. All right. So why don't we do Anguttara Nikaya? So we'll do one or two in the Anguttara, and then we'll do the meditation and call it. Well, Jay, I do want to you know, just everybody type, and if you keep getting first, then maybe it's like, like the student in the class that always raises their hand with the right answer. Maybe I might have to have you um, keep your hand down for one or two. So, Anguttara Nikaya, a number between 1 and 11. In 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, we're in the eights. All right, Ian. Thank you. Julie is consistently towards the end. I wonder if Julie has the worst internet. But okay, so now we have a number between, let's do 1 and 80. A number between 1 and 80 in 3, 2, 1, go. $74. All right. Second 50. Chapter on the pairs. 71, 72. Oh, the mindfulness of death suttas. All right. Let's do both suttas. Let's do both. Okay. The mindfulness of death suttas. Now, this first sutta. If you haven't seen this sutta, is one of the places where you see lots of like a funny in the suttas. You also see a little bit of a monastic competition. These are both pretty short, so I think we can just read through them. And then after that, we'll do our meditation. At one time, the Buddha was staying at Nadika in the brick house. There, the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, venerable sir, they replied. The Buddha said this: Mendicants, when mindfulness of death is developed and cultivated, it's very fruitful and beneficial. It culminates in the deathless and ends with the deathless. But do you develop mindfulness of death? When he said this, one of the mendicants said to the Buddha, Sir, I develop mindfulness of death. But mendicant, how do you develop it? In this case, sir, I think, oh, if only I'd lived for another day and night, I'd focus on the Buddha's instructions and I could really achieve a lot. That's how I developed mindfulness of death. Another mendicant said to the Buddha, Sir, I too develop mindfulness of death. But mendicant, how do you develop it? In this case, sir, I think, oh, if I'd only lived for another day, I'd focus on the Buddha's instructions and could really achieve a lot. That's how I develop mindfulness of death. Another mendicant said to the Buddha, Sir, I too develop mindfulness of death. But mendicants, how do you develop it? In this case, sir, I think, oh, if I'd only lived for half a day. You kind of see the one-upping yet? If I'd only lived for half a day, I'd focus on the Buddhist instructions and I could really achieve a lot. That's how I develop mindfulness of death. Another mendicant said to the Buddha, Sir, I too develop mindfulness of death. But mendicant, how do you develop it? Oh, if I'd only live as long as it takes to eat a single alms meal, I'd focus on the Buddha's instructions and I could really achieve a lot. That's how I developed mindfulness of death. Another mendicant said to the Buddha, "Sir, I too develop mindfulness of death." But mendicant, how do you develop it? In this case, sir, I think, oh, if I'd only live as long as it takes to eat half an alms meal, I'd focus on the Buddha's instructions and I could really achieve a lot. That's how I develop mindfulness of death. Another mendicant said to the Buddha, "Sir, I too develop mindfulness of death." But mendicant, how do you develop it? In this case, sir, I think, oh, if I'd only live as long as it takes to chew and swallow 4 or 5 mouthfuls, I'd focus on the Buddha's instructions and I could really achieve a lot. That's how I develop mindfulness of death. Another mendicant said to the Buddha, "Sir, I too develop mindfulness of death." But mendicant, how do you develop it? Oh, hello, Gretchen. I don't know that I saw you come in before, so just wanted to say hello. All right. In this case, I said, oh, if I'd only live for as long as it takes to chew and swallow a single mouthful, I'd focus on the Buddha's instructions and I could really achieve a lot. That's how I developed mindfulness of death. Another mendicant said to the Buddha, "Sir, I too develop mindfulness of death." But mendicant, how do you develop it? In this case, sir, I think, oh, if I'd only live as long as it takes to breathe out after breathing in, or to breathe in after breathing out, I'd focus on the Buddha's instructions and I could really achieve a lot. That's how I developed mindfulness of death. And now here comes the Buddha with the verdict. When this was said, the Buddha said to those mendicants, "The mendicants who develop mindfulness of death by wishing to live for a day and a night, or for a day, or for half a day, or for as long as it takes to eat an alms meal, alms food, or half an alms meal, or to live as long as it takes to chew and swallow 4 and 5 mouthfuls. Those mendicants, I say, are negligent. They're slackers. They slackly develop mindfulness of death for the ending of defilements." It's pretty hardcore, isn't it? Right? Even if you're thinking about death and you're just like, oh, just 4 or 5 mouthfuls, slacker. you're being negligent. But the mendicants who develop mindfulness of death by wishing to live as long as it takes to chew and swallow a single mouthful, or to live as long as it takes to breathe out after breathing in, or to breathe in after breathing out. These are mendicants who live diligently. They keenly develop mindfulness of death for the ending of defilements. So you should train like this. We will live diligently. We will keenly develop mindfulness of death for the ending of defilements. That is how you should train. All right, mindfulness of death 2. Much shorter than the first one. So we'll just go through that. But this one especially is great because it gives you an actual technique to practice. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Nadika in the brick house. There, the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, when mindfulness of death is developed and cultivated, it's very fruitful and beneficial. It culminates in the deathless and ends in the deathless. And how is mindfulness of death developed and cultivated? To be very fruitful and beneficial, to cultivate in deathless and end with the deathless. As the day passes by and night draws close, so when you're going to bed, a mendicant reflects, I might die of many causes. A snake might bite me, or a scorpion or a centipede might sting me. And if I died from that, it would stop my practice. Or I might stumble off a cliff, or get food poisoning, or suffer from a disturbance of bile, phlegm, or piercing winds. Or I might be attacked by humans or non-humans. And if I died from that, it would stop my practice. That mendicant should reflect, are there any bad, unskillful qualities that I haven't given up, which might be an obstacle for me if I die tonight? Suppose that upon checking, a mendicant knows that there are such bad, unskillful qualities. Then, in order to give them up, they should apply intense enthusiasm, effort, zeal, vigor, perseverance, mindfulness, and situational awareness. Suppose your clothes or head were on fire. In order to extinguish it, you'd apply intense enthusiasm, effort, zeal, vigor, perseverance, mindfulness, and situational awareness. In the same way, in order to give up these bad, unskillful qualities, that mendicant should apply intense enthusiasm. But suppose that, upon checking, a mendicant knows that there is no such bad, unskillful qualities. Then that mendicant should meditate with rapture and joy, training day and night in skillful qualities. Or else, as night passes and day draws close, a mendicant reflects, I might die of many causes. A snake might bite me, or a scorpion or a centipede might sting me. And if I died from that, it would stop my practice. Or I might stumble off a cliff, or get food poisoning, or suffer a disturbance of bile, phlegm, or piercing winds. Or I might be attacked by humans or non humans. And if I died from that, it would stop my practice. That mendicant should reflect, are there any bad, unskillful qualities that I haven't given up, which might be an obstacle for me if I died today? Suppose that upon checking, a mendicant knows that there is such bad, unskillful qualities, then in order to give them up, they should apply intense enthusiasm, effort, zeal, vigor, perseverance, mindfulness, and situational awareness. Suppose your clothes or head were on fire. In order to extinguish it, you'd apply intense enthusiasm. I'm going to ellipse some of this. In the same way, you should in order to give up those unskillful qualities, you should apply intense enthusiasm. But suppose that upon checking, there's no such unskillful qualities, you should meditate with rapture. Mindfulness of death is cultivated, is fruitful and beneficial. It culminates in the deathless. All right. So why don't we do some meditation, and then we'll end out about 9:55. Do our final closing in business, and call it a night. So set your body up in a stable and comfortable position. We'll start a scan through the body, starting with our feet, moving up to our head, slowly moving through the body, coming into contact with any sensation or feeling that arises, and observing that. We'll start with the feet. What is the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, the cushion? Focus in on that sensation related to the feet. Moving up through the ankles into the calves. While doing this, if you have trouble connecting with a sensation in any part of the body, you can prompt yourself by asking, what do I see? What do I feel? up through the knees and into the thighs, with the feeling of the thighs pressing against the couch, cushion, chair. Up through to the hips and pelvis. This is an important part of your posture. Pay attention how the position of the hips and pelvis impacts both the legs and the spine. The more you practice this scanning, the more deeply and refined understanding of the body you have, being able to adjust your posture so that you can sit for longer with less pain and problems. When you're ready, move up the spine, checking that the spine is in a neutral position, not leaning or slouching here or there. Moving up through the abdomen and the chest. Up through to the shoulders, checking that they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. down through to the elbows and hands, observing how the position of the elbows and hands impacts your posture. And then up to the head, checking that the head is hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. Chin parallel to the floor. And when you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. Remember, this body has been breathing from the moment you were born, and will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath. Watch as the body breathes in, watch as it breathes out. You get distracted away from the breath, do your best to come back. Now I'll give some instructions for the contemplation we'll be doing for the rest of this meditation. We'll be reflecting on the 5 subjects the Buddha encouraged us, whether woman or man, lay or monastic, to reflect upon often. So I'll give a words for us to repeat, and then I'll say some words to aid in your contemplation of that phrase before going to the next one. First line to repeat: I am subject to aging and decay. I've not gone beyond aging and decay. All beings age, not only just living human beings, not even just living creatures, even things like trees. Everything grows, moves towards decay. It's the nature of existence, moving towards breakup, moving towards decay, getting older. Many human beings before you have grown older. Maybe even you saw grandparents, parents, relatives, other people in the stage of old age. If you like, you can visualize an image in front of you, like looking in the mirror, and you can grow that image. Make yourself look older and older and older, frailer. What would you look like at 70, 80, 90? Repeat the word again. I am subject to old age and decay. I've not gone beyond old age and decay. Repeat the lines. I'm subject to illness and disease. I've not gone beyond illness and disease. All beings, all living creatures, trees, all biological things get sick, like a car breaking down. Get diseased. This is normal, natural. Even if somebody were to live as healthy as possible, and exercise and food, and all kinds of things like that, we are still not immune to disease and illness. It's the nature of this body having it, just having it, that this body will break down like a car broken down on the highway. Need to be fixed, taken care of, adjusted. Repeat the lines. I am subject to death. I've not gone beyond death. Everything in the universe eventually dies. Even stars, planets, let alone the beings on them. Even the universe may in whole or part die. No being and nothing escapes this. You have not gone beyond it. So you will die. This is simply just the nature of being a being continuously reborn in the samsaric state, continually subject to sankharas that are breaking down, falling apart, ceasing to be. Repeat the words. I will be separated from everyone and everything that I hold dear. Not only are you subject to old age, sickness, and death, so too are all those who you know, all beings. Because we're all subject to these three things, it is of the nature for us to be separated. Someone will die, someone will move away, a relationship will end one way or another. Separation is the inevitable ending of connection. Repeat the words. I am the owner of my karma, heir of my karma. My karma is my relative. Whatever I do, for good or evil, to that I shall be the heir. This is perhaps the most important of the five. Knowing that you are going to get old, get sick, and die. Knowing that you will be separated from everything and everyone you hold dear. How do you live? The Buddha is having us reflect that our actions matter. We create through our actions. We are the owner of them. So how do we choose to live? How do we choose to act? Be very mindful and wise, or else you will just continue to set the groundwork for more future suffering, more future old age, sickness, and death and loss. Always remember you are the owner of your actions. Repeat the words. I will age and decay. I will become sick and diseased. I will die. I will be separated from everyone and everything I hold dear. I am the owner of my actions. I will grow old and decay. I will get sick and diseased. I will die. I will be separated from everything and everyone that I hold dear. I am the owner of my actions. Slowly open the eyes. Come back from the internal to the external. Reflect on the state of your mind, maybe how it changed from before the meditation to now. Any experiences you had during your meditation, etc. It's always good to reflect on the meditation after you've completed it. And so, why don't we finish up with our business? So, if you would like to follow more Maggasekha things that I'm doing, keep abreast of that, you can go to the website scrolling on the bottom, maggasekha.org, Maggasekha.org. On this website, you can, on the right hand side, there's a place to put your email. You can click subscribe, and anytime I make a post on that website, you will get an email. So you can always keep up in when there's a new stream, when there's a new retreat. Just finished a retreat this past weekend. Don't know when the next one will be. But you can check out their website, subscribe to get emails. Same thing here on YouTube. You can click on the subscribe, click on the bell, and every time something happens, anytime a stream is going to be up, that will pop up for you. We also have Maggasekha Discord, which is a private Discord where we have our community that both studies and practices the early texts, the suttas, and how we use that as a framework for our study and practice. If that sounds interesting to you, you can always send an email to the email on the screen and ask for an invite to join us. So Monday nights, as long as I'm in a place where I can do a stream, is Dhammapalooza. Monday night, 8 p.m. New York time. I'm going to try and get back to some of the things I was doing before the last couple months, where I was staying at the monastery and being a little bit too busy and tired and exhausted to do a lot of my normal things. Morning monastery experience is back for now, at least for the next month, hopefully a couple months. That is every morning, 8 a.m. New York time. And that is when we do a half-hour session of like an experience of being at a morning puja at a monastery. So there's precepts, chanting, some Dhamma learning, and last 5 minutes or so, we do a thought of the day, which is like a little Dhamma teaching from me. That's a good way to start the day, especially if you're going off to work and being a busy day. We do that Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. And that's about it, my friends. So why don't we do sharing of merit? Let me get the share merit up. Do share merit. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, bhaya patta chane bhaya, soka patta chane soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha mehi sampatang punya sampadang, sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti sittiya, akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika punyang tang anumoditva charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings that share this merit of ours that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends. Hope to see you again in the future in another stream on the Discord or anywhere else that Maggasekha is doing things. Thank you for coming and joining us today for this Dhammapalooza. Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy. Practice well and be well. And until next we meet, may you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice. Good night, everybody. Have a good week.